Carl, you said that one of your colleagues might be joining.
Yeah, I sent him the email, but I haven't seen him at his desk yet. He might
Okay.
be in an offsite meeting right now.
Okay. All right. If he's not able to make it, we can forward the recording to him.
Yeah, it's good. Thanks.
Okay. Yep. All right. Well, why don't we get started? I want to try and get through as quickly as possible so that you all can get back to your day. So can you see? I think I just stopped sharing. Nope. Can you still see my screen?
Yep.
I can.
Okay. Okay, good. All right. So I just wanted to review some of the updates and suggestions that were made back at the focus group. And I did have another focus group. I think it was the following week after the one I had with the two of you. So a few other recommendations came out. So I tried to list all of them here. This is certainly not our entire backlog of things we're thinking, but more stuff that came out of the focus group. So I'll quickly go through these and then show you kind of what was done. So what I was able to complete was, the big request was just a cleaner UI, make it look a little more professional and modern. Next was a splash screen that really talked a little bit more about what was going on in the application and how to use it. Reorganize the menus, so that gets back to UI. This notion of being able to create new objects from anywhere. So if I want to create a new alert or a new data connection, I have to jump to another screen and then hit new just to be able to hit new from, say, a top menu. When we open a page, it'd be nice if it auto-loaded with any pre-selections or defaults rather than having to go through and click a button. Rachel, I think this one was yours, name custom calculations. If you build a custom calc, you give it a name. There was this request to do some table calculations. What I mean by that is if you wanted to have, say, a running sum across a time series, or maybe it's changed from previous period, do those kinds of table calculations as well. Notion of muting alerts. So if for example, an alert goes off, and then an hour later it's set to go off again, but you don't want to hear it again just because you already know something's happened, to mute it until the metric goes back into control. And then once it comes back out of control, you'll get another alert. So it's this notion of stopping the alerts from happening every hour or every 15 minutes and really not adding any value. Managing alerts. So rather than having to log into the site and find your alert and change the schedule, have a simple page that you could link to from an email without a login to say update a change a channel or mute an alert or pause it or whatever you might want to do. And this is meant more for business users who wouldn't necessarily be in the system. To be able to send from a single alert, maybe send it to one person via SMS and maybe another person via email, and not have to create multiple alerts to do that, and be able to have multiple recipients on an alert. Carl, I think this one was yours, to do column and row counts when you build a connection, so you have a sense of how many columns, how many rows are in this data set. So if I need to name my fields, for example, I have an idea of how many I need to create rather than counting them by hand. Carl, this one was yours as well. Select all the columns when you're building a query. Instead of clicking on each column that you want, just do a select all, dump them all in, and then delete as needed. On the monitor chart, this was the chart that told you, how many alerts have run, how many data loads have run, have they been successful, et cetera. There was no legend on that chart, so it was a request to do a legend. And then the last item here was if you, when you're building, doing the analysis and you're selecting a filter on a dimension and you selected all of the items in a list, it kind of grays out the list, but it doesn't show that all the items are selected. And it was a little misleading. This will make more sense when I show it. But the idea being to basically, even though the item might be grayed out, show that all items are indeed selected. And then just quickly over to the backlog. First several had to do with just making the queries easier, whether it's being more graphical or adding more of a metadata library. Start to offer some templates, have a search box where you can search for any object across the entire app, have a landing page dashboard that maybe shows you how many alerts have been triggered today and how many records have been loaded, that kind of thing. Carl, this one was yours, audible alert. So maybe I want to send an alert to a TV screen and have a sound go off rather than it have it be visible. I thought a little more about this one. I think using something like an Amazon Echo would be a great way to do this. You could kind of ping the Echo to have Alexa say something when an event happens, as opposed to, again, showing up on a screen. And then the last one, which I think is going to be my next item I work on, is a forget password link. So, because it's just another system, another username, another password, it's likely people are going to forget their password. So I want to be able to give a link to update it. So from here, I'm going to jump into browser so I can start to show some of the changes that were made. So this is the new landing, or I guess homepage. I was able to use some CSS libraries that exist to make it a little cleaner, a little more professional. I have some screenshots down below here. And I like using Jira a lot, and I tried to leverage a lot of the look and feel of Jira when I did this. So that's if you see some similarities if you're a Jira user, that's kind of where it came from. So I'm just going to log in here. And so this is the new splash screen that I was talking about, where it starts to show now the different components of the application. And I tended to break it up a little bit more than it was before. I think before I had connections and alerts. I broke each of those into two pieces. So now there's this notion of being able to connect to a data source, then you query that data source, you do analysis on the queries, and then separately you can create your schedule. So again, it's broken it up a little bit. That's all mirrored up here in the menu. And I did reorganize these menus to allow for a new connection right from the menu rather than having to go into that section and say create a new one. And that's replicated throughout each component here. So it's new, new, new. The other thing I do up here in the menus is I'm listing the 5 most recently changed or created items. So these are the 5 most recent connections that I created. I put the historical data load here, kind of buried it a little bit more underneath the queries because it relates to the data. Maybe it just joined. Oh, Desiree. Thank you, Desiree. Didn't realize you were on.
Sorry, joined late.
That's all right. That's all right. I need to give you credit for some of your suggestions. And let's see. So I buried the historical data load. These are just some future items that I'm wanting to add, and I just have placeholders for them now. Things like a data API. So if you want to connect to the data that have been loaded into the platform, that you'd be able to do that from a tool like Tableau. And then the other is to clean data. Because we're talking about, in some cases, pulling in data from the web, it can be messy. You want a capability to be able to clean the data up if necessary. And then, same thing here with model. If you want to start to build more advanced regression models, to have a component for that. I'm getting into roadmap at this point, but just wanted to show that I did put some placeholders in here. And then if you wanted to see all of the items in a particular, for a particular object, that list still exists. Just again, looks a little different because I'm using some more, some cleaner CSS libraries. I'm just going to bring us back to this splash screen. There is a little bit of a deeper dive into describing what each of these things means. So I did add that as well, and then the ability to, again, jump right into a particular section from here. So that has to do with the UI and the splash screen and the menus and so forth. I talked about creating objects from anywhere. So now, if I wanted to say open up a particular analysis, I can do that again just by picking that particular item from my most recent 5, or I could go to the view all and do a view from there. This was Desiree's idea that when you open something, it should actually open and not just show you some selections, but actually draw the chart for you or run the query for you, whatever it might be. So I did add that in. So from here, if we want to talk about custom calculations, so maybe instead of this average temperature, I want to do something custom. Same capability here, where I can say add the sum of, say, let me go down to metrics and say sum of temperature. That doesn't really make sense, but I'm going to do it anyway. And as you can see, I do have these pop-ups now that describe the calculations and sort of functions rather and what they need. And I am hovering over some of the table calculations that I talked about. So first, I'm just going to say this is sum of temp. And Rachel, this was your idea to be able to name these things so they make a little more sense. I'll hit save here. And then there we go. Sorry. Hit preview, and it already did the sum of temp already, so it didn't change at all. I'm going to now go back and say get rid of this and instead do a running sum of temp. And what I try to do here is to have it be smart enough to place these objects correctly when you click on them. So you can see how it's suggesting here, if you do a running sum, you need to have an aggregated measure in that. And it's asking for a measure or a metric that relates to the sum. When I click on temp, it knows enough to drop it in that spot. So I don't have to go type it or make sure the cursor is in the right place. So I'll hit save there and hit preview. And now we can see this is a running sum of temperature for the day. Not really meaningful for this particular metric, but just wanted to share that capability. So those are the table calculations. Next up, I'm going to be talking a little bit about, actually, before I get onto that, let me show this select all item. So right now, if I wanted to pick, say, a few of these airports, that's fine. I can run my chart. But then if I say select all, I want it to look like it's actually selected all. And that's what happens now. I know it's a minor point, but before it would show still those 2 selected airports when I clicked the select all here, and it was a little confusing whether it really selected all or not. So just by default selecting everything underneath and then graying it out. That's kind of a minor look and feel. All right, so I'm going to get on to the muting of alerts now. So I mentioned earlier that I did separate what I was calling alerts into analysis and schedules. So I'm just going to jump into this particular schedule that I created. And I'm going to hit the save button here just to show how you would access that muting of alert. This was Desiree's idea. Again, if a metric goes out of control and you have it set to go off every hour, you don't want to get that alert every hour. You want to mute it until things get back into control. And that's what this button does right here. It just says enable muting so that it won't continue to bug you. It lets you do what you need to do to fix it. So just a few other things. I did add the capability to allow for not only multiple recipients, but multiple recipients across different channels. So if Brian wanted to get a text message and Carl wanted to get a text and my sister wants to get an email, we can add in those multiples now. And you can see they're color coded depending on the channel that was selected for that person. And likewise, if my sister wants to get an email and a text, we can do that as well. And then in summary here, I cancel that, but in summary, it will show you how many recipients are scheduled for this. There's this ability to add a subject line to the email. the ability to customize the message that is going to go into the email or the text message with some variables that you can drop in. If you want to drop in a variable about the aggregation or the metric name or what the metric value was, you can do that. And then if you want the email to, or the text message to link back to some other site, say for example, you have a Tableau dashboard that you want to take someone to, you can put that link in here and that will show up in the email where they can click on view results and it will take them to that Tableau dashboard rather than back into here. It's very similar if you're talking about an SMS. So this is a preview of what the SMS would look like along with the links, whether you want to go into a separate dashboard. And this manage link is what I'll talk about right now. So I have a few sample emails here that I've received. I just want to show you how they would look with the fact that we now have the ability to display the chart in the email. Before that didn't exist. It was really just a simple bit of text. Now there's actually a chart in the email along with the selections for the chart and then these links here to view results or manage the alert. So what I'm going to do is click on Manage Alert. And what this does is it takes me into a page that doesn't require me to authenticate because there's a unique ID associated with that email who would go to you. And it lets you manage the alert from kind of outside the system. So if you set up this alert for someone else and they want to change how they're getting it, this allows them to do that without needing a login, really. I mean, they don't have to be the user in the system to be able to come here. All they need to do is have received an alert and they can manage it. So they can do things like change the channel that they receive the alert on. If they want to flip it to SMS, they can cancel it. If they don't want to get it anymore, they can say pause it until maybe the end of next week at 6 o'clock. Sorry, 6 o'clock. Or they can mute it from here. So if it hasn't been muted previously, if they're starting to get multiple alerts, they can say, you know what, I want to mute this thing. And this becomes specific to them. If everyone else decides they don't want to mute it, then it won't be muted for others. It just is muted for this one person. So that is the managing of the alerts. So from here, I'm just going to quickly jump back into the connections and the queries, and then that'll be it. Maybe have some questions if you have them. So I'm going to select this existing connection here. This was a connection on the weather data, which is the example I've been going through. So I put in this URL for this web service, and it's showing me the JSON data for that particular connection. I've specified the path of the JSON that I want to use, and I'm just going to hit preview here, and very similar to how it was before, it's showing me that result. I think before this was all done through some modal pop-ups and it was kind of hidden. That's why I broke things apart, just so it's a little bit flatter on a single screen rather than having you jump around to different screens. If this were, say, a CSV file that I wanted to look at, this is, Carl, your suggestion here to show how many rows, how many fields in here. In case I needed to enter in my own field names, I don't need to count up how many there were. I can have a sense going in for that. And then last bit here is getting on to the query. If I wanted to, say, do a new query here, and I wanted to use this particular data set. Previously, if I wanted to select all of them, I'd have to go through and click each field separately. Now there's this click all button. I'm just clicking on the table name, and it's listing all of them. And if there's some I don't want, I get rid of them, hit preview, and it will give me the result. So that is it very quickly. I think the last thing was this monitor chart that has a legend now, kind of not very I guess I didn't load, sorry, didn't load that onto my production site yet, but there is a legend here, just to show what the different colors mean. That is a little bit there that changed. So that's all the changes right now. Just want to see if you all had any questions or thoughts or feedback or reaction to this. Or you might be on mute. I'm not hearing anything.
It took me a minute to figure out how to get off of mute.
Rachel, any thoughts, Rachel?
I mean, to me, it looks a lot better and it's a lot more intuitive. It actually just seems like kind of a different product to me in terms of the look and feel. So I guess that's good.
Mm-hmm. All right, good. So, so one thing I wanted to do kind of as a next step was to test out some use cases. I wanted to enlist all of you to kind of come up with, an idea of how you might use this. It doesn't have to be work related. It can be if that's what you want. Doesn't matter to me. But just to, and you don't have to come up with them now, but just to send me the idea. Hey, I'd like to be able to, have an alert that sends me information about a real estate listing, for example, or if some, particular house goes on the market. I don't care what it is, or maybe it's some tracking metric at work and I can get access to the data and I want an alert that tells me when this metric goes out of some control range. I'm just really looking to stress test this now to see if the functionality that I've built in is useful across a wide array of needs. So that's my only request really coming out of this. And again, any other thoughts or feedback you might have, again, your logins will still work. So feel free to go in and play on your own if you like, set up alerts of your own if you want. I'd love that as well. But that's really about it. So anything from anyone before we sign off?
I think it looks great.
All right, good.
Yeah, I like the way you split it up into the 4 categories. It makes much more sense than before.
Yeah, and I think it's still got a little ways to go in terms of the flow. So just as an example, if I am working in a particular area, say analysis, and I want to save this, right now I have to click on the schedule button, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense in terms of saving. I can click save here, and there's actually a little bug I need to fix, but what it does is take you on to the next screen. So I tried to create almost a wizard type format. So when you're done here and you saved it, it moves you on. But in using this, I found that there are certain situations where I don't want to move on. I just want to save it. I just want to save what I've done and continue working on this area. So I need to come up with a different way of that flow and being able to save it and stay where you are versus, save and move on if you're ready to move on. So little things like that I think just as we continue to play with it will become clear and we'll figure out a way to do it the right way. All right. Well, thank you all for joining. And again, if you do have ideas for the use case, please forward them on, and we'll see if we can get them working.
Sounds good.
Well,
all right.
thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.